banging on my front door jolted me awake like a gunshot. It wasn't even sunrise, and fog still clung to the windows of my small mountain cabin. When I opened the door, 3 members of the Pine Ridge HOA stood there with clipboards and stiff expressions, like they had rehearsed their disapproval in the mirror. "Mr. Carter," the tallest one said, "we're declaring your cabin unsafe for occupancy. Effective immediately." My stomach dropped. Unsafe? Based on what? They exchanged glances. Unpermitted structural changes. Cracks in the foundation. Electrical violations. I laughed, even though nothing was funny, because I'd built this cabin with my own hands, guided by a licensed contractor who double-checked every detail. "Show me," I said. They didn't. Instead, they taped a bright red notice to my door, the kind you usually see on abandoned properties. As they walked away, I felt a heat rise in my chest. Not fear, but anger. Something about this wasn't right. By noon, rumors were spreading around the neighborhood that my cabin was sinking, that it was wired dangerously, that the HOA had saved the community by shutting me down. It hurt to hear people talk like that, especially since I'd moved here to find peace, not trouble. Late that afternoon, my neighbor, Mrs. Dunham, stopped by with a casserole I didn't have the appetite for. "Sweetheart," she said, "they've been after your property for months. They want to expand the community trail through your lot. They're trying to scare you into selling." That landed like a punch. I decided right then I wasn't letting the HOA bully me out of my home. First thing the next morning, I drove to the county office and filed for an independent inspection. The clerk raised an eyebrow when she saw the red notice. "These again," she muttered. "You're not the first." The inspector, a no-nonsense guy named Alvarez, met me 2 days later. He walked the entire property with a tablet, measuring, tapping beams, checking wiring crawling under the deck. He asked questions, real ones, not accusations. When he finished, he stood in my living room, arms crossed. "I'll be honest with you," he said. "I expected at least something to justify that notice. But your cabin? It's rock solid. Whoever built it knew what they were doing." I felt a lump in my throat. "So it's safe?" "More than safe," he said. "I'll file my report today, and I recommend you keep a copy for when the HOA tries this again." As he left, a wave of relief washed over me, but underneath it was something stronger. Determination. The HOA had picked the wrong person to intimidate. Now I wanted answers, and I wasn't backing down. That night, as I sat on the porch watching the last light fade behind the pines, one thought settled in. If they were willing to lie to shut me down, what else were they hiding from Pine Ridge? I wasn't backing down, and I wasn't facing this quietly. Not anymore, not now. The county's inspection report landed in my inbox the next morning. With a satisfying ding, I opened it instantly. Every line was clean, no structural deficiencies, electrical work compliant, foundation stable, property safe for occupancy. At the bottom, Inspector Alvarez had added a personal note. "If the HOA disputes this, have them contact my office directly. You are fully cleared." I exhaled, a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding for days. I printed 5 copies. I knew I'd need them. Around noon, I marched into the Pine Ridge HOA office, a converted ranch house, with a fresh coat of paint, and a whole lot of attitude behind the front desk. The receptionist looked up from her phone. "Can I help you?" "Yes," I said, placing the report on the counter. "I want this false violation removed immediately." Her eyebrows arched, but she didn't touch the paper. "You'll need to speak with the board. They're busy." "Funny," I said, crossing my arms. "They were plenty free when they taped that red notice to my door." Before she could reply, the office door swung open and the same tall board member from earlier, Mr. Hargrove, stepped out. His smile was tight. "Mr. Carter, I see you've brought paperwork." "Oh, I brought facts," I said. "The county says my cabin is perfectly safe. So unless the HOA suddenly outranks the government, you owe me an explanation." He skimmed the first page. His jaw tightened. "We'll need time to review this." "You had time to shut down my home without reviewing anything," I snapped. "Now you'll remove that notice today." His composure cracked for a split second before he forced his voice steady. "This matter will be addressed at the next board meeting." I leaned in. "I'll be there. With the report, and with everyone you've ever intimidated." His eyes narrowed. I suggest you watch your tone. I smiled. I suggest you watch your authority. I left before he could respond. Word of my confrontation spread faster than wildfire. Neighbors I barely knew started stopping by. Some offered support. Others admitted the HOA had hit them with bogus fines and threats, too. The more stories I heard, the clearer it became. This wasn't about safety. It was about control. The night of the board meeting, Pine Ridge's community hall was packed. People stood shoulder to shoulder, murmuring. When I walked in, the room quieted, then erupted in whispers. I took a seat in the front row, the county report in my hand. The board filed in like royalty entering court. Hargrove cleared his throat. We'll begin with the first agenda item. Mr. Carter, you requested to address the board. I stood. Actually, I said, projecting my voice, the entire community needs to hear this. I held up the report, the county seal glinting under the fluorescent lights. The HOA claimed my cabin was unsafe, but the county says the opposite. My home is solid. No violations. No danger, nothing. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. And if they lied about me, I continued, how many of you have been lied to? How many of you have been fined, threatened, or bullied for reasons you never understood? People shifted, nodding, whispering to each other. Faces hardened with recognition. For the first time, the board looked nervous. And I wasn't close to done. The community hall buzzed with tension so thick it felt electric. I could see it on people's faces. Anger, relief, curiosity, all swirling together like a storm waiting to break. Hargrove shuffled his papers, his voice unsteady for the first time. Mr. Carter, please refrain from making accusations without... I cut him off. I'm not accusing. I'm revealing. I slapped the report onto the table in front of the board. The county cleared my cabin. Completely. You declared it unsafe, without any real inspection. Why? The room went dead silent. Everyone stared at the board. Hargrove opened his mouth, but before he could answer, another board member, a woman named Cheryl, spoke, her voice cracking. Because we were told the expansion project needed your lot. A ripple of shock swept through the audience. What expansion? Someone shouted from the back. Cheryl swallowed. The board has been negotiating with a private developer. They want to build a luxury lodge and extend the community trail. Your property was in the way. She looked down, ashamed. We were told if we made it uninhabitable, you'd be forced to sell. My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. So you tried to ruin my home? My investment, my life, for a trail extension? It wasn't personal, Hargrove snapped, but the room turned on him instantly. Someone yelled, it wasn't personal? You tried to scam him? Another voice. You did the same thing to the Ramirez family last year. A third, how many of us have you manipulated? The crowd erupted, voices overlapping, people shouting, demanding answers. Hargrove slammed the gavel, but it didn't matter. Nobody respected his authority anymore. He'd lost the room. I raised my hand, and surprisingly, the noise slowly died down. Listen, I said. This isn't just about my cabin. It's about all of us. They thought they could take advantage of people because we stayed quiet. That ends tonight. Cheryl bowed her head as Hargrove's face turned red. Another board member slipped out the side exit, clearly wanting no part of the fallout. I stepped closer, looking directly at Hargrove. You owe this community an apology, but more than that, you owe us transparency. Real transparency. I turned to the crowd. We need a new board, one that works for us, not against us. Cheers erupted. Fists pumped in the air. The energy shifted, no longer fear, but unity. By the end of the meeting, nearly the entire board had resigned. The community demanded a full audit of all past fines, violations, and actions. And me? I walked out knowing I'd done something bigger than protecting my cabin. I'd protected my neighbors. A week later, the county officially removed the red notice. The developer pulled out. And then something wild happened because, of all the publicity and the county's glowing report, my property value skyrocketed. Real estate blogs even featured my cabin as a model of mountain craftsmanship. Funny how the truth once exposed becomes its own spotlight. Standing on my porch looking out over the pines, I felt something settle inside me, a lesson I wished someone had told me sooner. When people try to take your voice, that's when you shout the loudest. And if you're watching this right now, here's my call to action. Stand up for yourself. Don't let anyone, HOA, boss, or bully decide your worth. Fight back. Speak up. Your story might just inspire someone else to find their courage too.